Education is elevation, man. Today's conversation is going to be brought to y'all by something that's actually going on in my community right now. You know what I mean? And I think that it's a broader conversation as what's going on in America. But we recognize is that ain't nothing new under the sun. And usually, when you have tactics or you have strategies that's been popularized or that's been seen as being successful by other people, other folks, you see what I'm saying, will pick up those tactics. Other people will, you know what I'm saying, pick up those things. So, now I'm about to give y'all a little bit of background and a bit of a news update. I went live yesterday on Facebook to the people in my community in Bryan College Station, Texas. You see what I'm saying? And I know that now I'm doing it on my main page because I think that it's a broader conversation that's going on here that's bigger than the family, that's bigger than the real estate developer, that's bigger than the journalist and stepdaughter that I am. You feel me? Disagreeing with. This video will be covering three things. The first thing is going to be covering is the documentation in terms of the article. I've had the liberty of speaking with a few different family members about this particular issue and been able to have privilege of hearing a few different conversations. That's how I would put it. You know what I'm saying? And the things that were admitted in this conversation was very, very, very damning. Hope this provides clarity. You see what I'm saying? I think that we all should be stewards of trying to search for truth and be really situated in what the truth is and not caring about who's right and who's wrong, but what is the truth.
My name is John Simmons. I moved here 22 years ago. None of this over here was here. This was an isolated place. Nothing was here. And I worked hard. I took a wheelbarrow. It took me a year to clean this land up. And the city would not let me put a brick home here. They said I could only put a double wide. First, they told me I couldn't put nothing here because I tore the old trailer home down that my father-in-law had. And I hired a lawyer. He charged me $10,000 to get me to get on this land. And his name was, I'm trying to think of his name now. I can't
It's okay, but now what's happening?
But right now, the developer in this area, Trent Thomas, Roundtree Development, and their lawyers is trying to take my land. They asked me to sell. I said I wasn't going to sell. They offered me $150,000 for my land just a few years ago. And you see what I got. Last month, 3 months ago, they offered me $500,000 in front of my lawyer. I said, no, I'm not going to sell.
And giving you a news update, what I acknowledge from being able to talk with different members of the family is this dispute been going on for 4 years. Where you see that gentleman right there, his name is Mr. Simmons. He's there. He's a native he's lived. Shout out to the native folks of College Station, the indigenous native folks of College Station. But he's somebody that, you feel me, is born and raised in College Station, or at least has land in College Station, Mr. Simmons. And what he's getting into is that he's been having a land dispute with this developer by the name of Trent Thomas at Roundtree Development about a specific part of his land. In a news update, what I've been able to acknowledge is that the dispute happens particularly based off of what the Brazos County has told Mr. Trent. In order to have his division approved to make it to code, he has to have a specific part of Mr. Simmons' land to make it where his new development is in code, right? Due to this going back and forth with Mr. Simmons, he's been able to pretty much feel like that Trent Thomas is trying to bully him. And instead of giving him the piece of land that Trent Thomas wants, which is on, I think, one of the sides of Mr. Simmons' land, he told Trent Thomas he can have that land from the back. But the issue is that the piece of land that Mr. Simmons is giving, you feel me, this white man, it would not allow for him to be able to be up to code with his new development. Are we all understanding what's happening so far? You feel me?
University title. So we found the title, and it says that Roundtree Development has like a little smidge. And Trent has been like messaging me all day with names and things, and it just don't add up. It has like nothing to do with nothing. He legally owns 10%, which how he came about it, I would love University Title Company to explain that to me.
And this person right here is Fabi, and the other person right there is Mr. Simmons. Now that I've had more time to process and really think about this, I think this is where a lot of the criticisms start to come out, and specifically what all parties involved could have done better, myself being included. Being a Bryan College Station person that's born and raised in Bryan College Station, I feel like if I could have got involved a little bit earlier, maybe, then I feel like I could have made it where this mess that we got ourselves in terms of the community arguing and fighting on comment sections, make it where it's not like that way, right? We can acknowledge that the way in which Fabi has went about doing this, though, is very noble, that different people have been able to disagree with how she's, what I'm saying, went about it. You see what I'm saying? And what I know is an individual that do this work, talking about social justice, talking about what's going on in the Black community, is that when people don't have the range to speak to the problems that's going on, they make it harder for people like me, because then our credibility, our motives is really, you know what I'm saying, really hit. You feel me? And when it comes to being able to explain what's really going on, I acknowledge that there's some holes in being able to explain what's going on for Fabi. And I think that's something that she should really think about and sit on, especially recognizing that the more visibility you do get in this work, the more level of you being scrutinized, the more level of you being this. And I seen you made a post about that, but I think that there's a trade-off here. You feel me? When individuals felt like, you know, the KAG article was able to make it like you didn't know what you was talking about, that's what started the issue. You feel me? I have a PowerPoint here made for us. We're gonna get into gentrification. We're gonna get into heirship law. But before I get into that, though, that's really, I think I want to make sure that it's making sense on why specifically I'm getting into that. And I think that the best way to do it is to go to this article, because that's really what started a lot of my questioning. You know what I'm saying? That's what started a lot of me being like, 2 and 2 ain't putting together. 2 and 2 ain't really adding up. Finna zoom in for us. What we see right here is that this article talks about how that the claimant of studying of the land, it's not quite as simple as it's being put. You know, it's not quite as simple as they put it. What I acknowledge in this news update is that this is not as simple as nobody's been putting it. It's not as simple as Trent Roundtree team has been putting it. It's not as simple as Miss Simmons and Mr. Simmons and Fabi has been putting it. To be clear, this really ain't got nothing to do with that. And that's when I start getting into one of my points. One of my issues with the unethical journalism that's been going on here is that the relationship that the person that made this article that I'm showing y'all has with the stepdaughter of, you feel me, the individual of this, and has with their husband of the person that made this article, it is very unethical and very suspect at best. You see what I'm saying? The individuals that's been in my comment section talking about misinformation, talking about not knowing what I'm talking about. My beef with that is that if you had a real prioritization of misinformation, that article before it was published, it would have been error checked. See what I'm saying? And now, listen, I went back to the article and seen that the change from 37,000 to 37 point whatever it's supposed to be, it's been changed, right? I acknowledge that. But still, critical thinking skills is what I really want people to really dig into. You see what I'm saying? And when we start thinking critically, right? When we start thinking critically, it's a reason why. In my video, when I'm going off about the 3 ways that heirship law is used to exploit and steal, you feel me, Black land, it's a reason why that one of the 3 hyperlinks that's provided in this article right here is a hyperlink about, what's this right here, y'all? It's about heirship. It's about heirship. So when the individual, Sarah, the author of this article, is in my comment section talking about how I don't have comprehension skills, is one that not only brings my thirst for truth in, but then brought my ego in. I acknowledge that. And when the ego got involved in, now it's gonna be like, okay, what's really going on here? You feel me? And this right here is when I started talking shit about what I call shitty journalism, right? This right here is when in this news update and being able to connect the dots with these 2 things, right? If we have in this article that's able to acknowledge that you went to the Brazos County Clerk office, and this Brazos County Clerk office told you that Mr. Simmons paid taxes, right? But when he paid taxes, those taxes went as a gift, right? In that same, right here, We asked Mr. Simmons for any documentation that would show he holds any ownership of the property he claims was stolen, but did not provide any. In order to establish a claim of adverse possession, you must provide documentation that is open to notable to the public. This the part right here is why I started getting. Let's go to this video I have up here for y'all. Let's go to this video up here.
Apparently, this is like his somehow. What?
Okay,
right here.
Can you talk? But I know you're under duress. That
we also was able to confirm this story that Mr. Simmons is getting into about how he was chased by Mr. Thomas and another gentleman on his land. It's been confirmed. You see what I'm saying? It's been confirmed that this gentleman chased an 81-old white man on his property under the guise that he pulled out a gun, right? So when we start talking about individuals aligned, let's really think about the big credibility that's going here. And also want to acknowledge what's happening in College Station, Texas is indicative of what always happens throughout our country, and acknowledging that the white land developer is always able to find a few black people that's willing to do the dealing of them for any individualized gain, right? Now I have an individual by the name of Sophia, the stepdaughter, you know what I'm saying? Probably should saying a niece, but the stepdaughter is saying, consciously, George Lee, you clout chaser, how could you pull a black woman and slander a black woman like this? You feel me? And I recognize that she's trying to tug at the emotional, you feel me, you know what I'm saying, coat. But the thing that comes insidious about that is that you two black women are using your bodies to insulate Trent Thomas from being able to have monetary gain and being able to get this land development going. You see what I'm saying? What I acknowledge is that when we're talking about the tax office and we're talking about how different land developers are able to take advantage of different families having conflict amongst themselves, it's always outliers. Individuals that are willing to take their position and use their expertise to be able to have monetary gain or have some type of capital gain, allegedly, in my opinion. See what I'm saying? So it's like, whether we're talking about Bryan, Texas, or we're talking about Los Angeles, California, it's like, hey, there's always been black people that are willing to sell out their own people, that's willing to get out anything they can in order to keep their credibility or work on their credibility at the expense of others. That is a fact. You see what I'm saying? Now let's get back to this article. Let's get back to this article, because I think this article is where a lot of my criticisms came about. And that's the reason why I'm so turned up, because so many individuals is like, you don't know what you're talking about and you don't have any comprehension skills. We asked Mr. Simmons for any documentation that would show he holds any ownership of the property that he claimed he did. We say that he said he didn't. He said, the next sentence right here, the next sentence. It's not those reports of paid taxes just became, so you have a report of paid taxes, but in this same sentence, the same document, in the same paragraph, you claim there's no documentation. Class, can we identify that a receipt that shows you paid taxes is documentation? Can we show that, right? So I'm not trying to attack this individual at all when I'm talking shit about the journalism. I'm talking specifically about the journalism. I don't know Sarah. I don't know Sophia. I don't know Trent. I don't know Trey. I don't know none of these individuals. But I do know how to read. I do have critical thinking skills. And I can acknowledge when things is happening in front of my face and an individual is, pissing on me and telling me there's rain or there's water. Like, I can acknowledge that. You see what I'm saying? And it don't take me to be a rocket scientist or even having a legal degree to be able to acknowledge when the math ain't adding up, when the math ain't mathing. So it was right here. If not those reports of paid taxes, so you have reports of paid taxes in the same paragraph, you acknowledge that there is no documentation. Think about that. Think about this from an ethical, journalistic standpoint, where you're trying to be objective and account for all parties and account for everything that is happening, right? Another news update, what I found from talking to different family members, there's a potential that Trent has also been messed over in this deal. Feel me? It's became obvious that the verification of the sale of Mr. Simmons' land to him may have happened unlawfully, and this might have been out of Trent's control. You see what I'm saying? And that's important. That's important to put. The thing also that really bothered me about this is that the same individuals is coming at me about doing something to black women is the same black woman that allowed for herself to talk about racial harassment and talk about it in a way where the white man that's being accused of stealing a black man land is painted as a victim of racial harassment and racial violence. What are we talking about here? What are we doing here? You see what I'm saying? On top of that, you feel me? When I'm doing my mind and my business on Facebook and I'm just talking about what I think about what's going on, and I have a journalist using a personal page to come talk shit in my comment section, and you talking about professionalism, I don't find it very professional. You feel me? When you start talking about you don't do this with the internet people and your job is literally to post and make articles for the internet, it comes off as being contradictory and also that your comprehension skills is kind of lacking. You see what I'm saying? I don't do this internet shit with you internet people, but your job, KAG, a open it's a job that's on the internet. See what I'm saying? So this is the part right here where it started being like, this is a little bit petty, but it's also to show that, you know what I'm saying, when I get into this airship law, and again, the reason why I brought it up, and another news update, when I was speaking with the family members of Mr. Simmons, 2 or 3 of them acknowledged that they have an open, you know what I'm saying, thing going on with lawyers, and that the phone calls that I was able to hear, I can reference what I heard in the phone calls, but I can't show y'all the phone calls, so I do have them in my possession. And what I acknowledge is that when I was going off about these 3 reasons about how airship law is specifically used to exploit black people, one of the things that Trent Thomas threatened one of the family members to do was have a partition suit. Remember, y'all, I was going off about how the 3 things that's used, the 3 normalized ways that airships is used to extract black land, and I talked about partition cells, the lack of a clear title, and predatory actions. And I told y'all that from reading this article, I will be able to identify how all 3 of these things is within this article. Do y'all know that not only the individual fixed their mouth to tell me I didn't have comprehension skills, that when I heard this recording, I damn near jumped out my hand and threw my computer on the ground because I was like, man, I was tapped in, wasn't I? I was tapped in. So when I say this issue is bigger than what it is, think about it like this. Mr. Simmons.
Can you tell me about that day? What happened?
Yes, I was riding around that day because I have an allergy, a breathing problem.
Hey, Ari, I agree. Paying taxes does not equate to ownership. I agree, right? My issue is that when the article claims there is not any documentation, it's like that right there is that this is documentation that ties you to a property. You feel me? Ties, not shows ownership. But in this video right here, I put together
and they had set some woods on fire. So I drove around to see where the smoke coming from. And when I got around, I saw it was Trent Thomas, Roundtree Development Corporation. And all at once, I saw a white truck take off, headed towards the public road. And when I looked up, I said, that's Trent Thomas. Then I was side by side running from them, and he cut me off. He speeded up and cut me off. And I took off away from him because
he's talking about Trent Thomas. He's talking about Trent Thomas, the developer, and one of his buddies seeing him on the land and them kind of getting into tit for tat or what something happened and made it where it inevitably resulted into Mr. Simmons running from these 2 individuals. Mr. Simmons is a 81-year-old black man, and Trent Thomas is in his 40s. There's no type of bodily threat, you feel me, that Mr. Simmons could have provided. So it shows you that they picking, they bullying. You see what I'm saying? So the news update are talking about how this issue been going on for 4 years and that Mr. Simmons and Trent Thomas been going back and forth for 4 years. The issue now has came about because Trent Thomas has not been able to move forward in his development because he could not get approved from the county and not be in the code if he don't get a specific part of Mr. Simmons' land. You see what I'm saying? So when we start talking about gentrification and how black people are displaced, this is one of the reasons why I was saying it's bigger, right? In Bryan College Station right now, Texas A&M University went to the SEC. The SEC, the Southeastern Conference of Football, is one of the bigger conferences that brings a lot of money and a lot of industry, you feel me, to the area. As a result, you see what I'm saying? It's been a lot of different individuals that have either A, moved to the area to make some money, or B, now started trying to make some money in the area. When we start talking about what's happening to our brothers and sisters in Faux Block, you feel me? You know what I'm saying? And literally over there, like that whole area of Faux Block. You see what I'm saying? All of the state streets. And y'all think about how people are being displaced and being gentrified. What's happening in Mr. Simmons is exactly how you lose ties to the community that you was born and raised in. Mr. Simmons, that land has been tied into that family for since the 1800s. See what I'm saying? Or one of them to one account has been there for hundreds of years. I'll say that. You see what I'm saying? That's what I've been told by the family, right? We can acknowledge is that it don't matter how much ties you have to the land if you can't afford to live there. So put it like this: does Mr. Simmons stand to potentially gain from his property taxes being raised with this development? Yes. However, Mr. Simmons is 81 years old. He also stands to lose the property because it's going to increase his property taxes. So when I say that this issue is bigger than Mr. Simmons, or it's bigger than Trent, or it's bigger than Roundtree, I'm talking about how throughout America right now, we have different external forces being able to exploit airship laws to gentrify and push Black and brown people out of their spaces, out of their places, out of their hood, out of their land. Go back to the article now. In acknowledging what's being said in this article again, Roundtree now has 2 projects on hold and plan on getting authorities involved to survey the land they bought, despite Simmons' claim to the developer that doesn't have access to the land. I forgive Mr. Simmons, but I think everybody that is liable in the defaming, slanderous farce to show that is put on the need to be paid in some criminal or civil or something civil. And at the end of it, that's what I was able to come to the conclusion of, right? So for Sarah specifically, I know that when you see how I initially was like, damn, so this has come to some type of financial illiteracy, right? You said, yeah, it's a lot to unpackage. I go and read the article again. I took away from the article what you intended the reader to take away from. These is some uneducated Negroes that are financially illiterate, and if they would have just had a living will or would have just had a trust, all this could have been avoided. That's literally what was intended, what the writer intended for the reader to leave away with, right? Thank God for critical thinking skills and my thirst for being able to unpackage things. Once we start to unpackage it and we see that this originally started from, this originally started in the hood of making everybody was justice for Mr. Simmons. This article written that says that it's much more complicated that's put now allows for people to call people scammers, call people liars, say you're running a hoax. You feel me? It literally makes it where now we're going to create more chaos to make it hard for us to even have a discussion about who actually is the rightful owner of the land. News update. There is no documentation, huh? No, that's what it said. So for me, it's like when you're on payroll and you get paid money to do research and journalism and to search for the truth, and you feel me, you work for a company that I assume has a whole department that's dedicated to doing this, and you say there's no documentation provided. It's like this right here says that John Simmons is the owner of this land. So in the article, when it talks about something happened unbeknownst to him, how can your name be the owner of the land and be as owner and something happened unbeknownst to you and your wife? Now, from talking with the family, we know that they have a medical power of attorney, you feel me, of some sort that can testify that Miss Simmons was in no state to be able to sign away or make any decisions. So when I give you a news update and talk about how I think Trent may have also been messed up with this, it comes to the question of who verified the sale of the Simmons estate in any way, shape, form, or fashion being sold to them. If it was happened unbeknownst to Mr. Simmons, unbeknownst to Mrs. Simmons, who approved the sale? Mr. Thomas may also have wronged in this situation. So when I say in my post that I'm trying to hope this provides clarity for all parties involved in recognizing that something happened at that tax office, right? If the tax office allowed for Mr. Simmons to pay taxes under the false pretenses it was going to the land, when in actuality it was gifts, that sounds like a facilitation of fraud or something of that sort. You feel me? And I'm pretty sure there are fine, caring, ethical people at that clerk office in Brazos County. I'm sure they're amazing people, right? But something has to be resolved in this issue of how did this sale happen if you can acknowledge that it happened unbeknownst to the owners. Get into gentrification, man. Get into gentrification, and you know, when I start sprinkling in a little bit of this whole education on y'all, you know, because this is about. This is about what's going on and how can we do things to be able to stop it. You feel me? So we're just gonna get into class a little bit, recognizing that heirship property is the literal abstraction of Black land. You know what I mean? I ain't gonna show y'all the PowerPoint, but it's gonna be able to just show y'all again. We know that the heirs of property has played a significant role in the loss of Black-owned land in America. Heirs property refers to the land that is passed down through generations without a clear or formalized legal title. This type of property ownership is common among African-American families due to historical factors such as slavery, Jim Crow, discriminatory practices, financial illiteracy, being duped, being deceived, having a journalist that's cool with the stepdaddy or stepdaughter of the person that's trying to own it. Like, these are all ways that have allowed for heirship to be exploited. You see what I'm saying? And when we keep on going, we acknowledge that in the past, African Americans, we've often faced challenges in obtaining legal documentation for the land due to a whole bunch of different factors. We also know that many Black people, we denied access to resources like legal representation, education, and financial institutions. And one of the audios that I heard Mr. Thomas speaking on, he talked about being able to give resources for Mr. Simmons for a lawyer. And he talked about it in a type of ultimatum type of way, that I could give this to Mr. Simmons right now, but if he pissed me off, I'm not giving him to him no more, right? One of the third things that I identified in that live, when I'm saying it's 3 practices that urban development users or real estate people are able to use in terms of heirship law, the 3 was partition of sales. In the audio that I heard, you see what I'm saying? Trent Thomas literally threatened not only defamation suits, because you ain't even talk shit about him. He the wrong white man to mess with. He also talked about literally filing a partition suit. Why would he do that? Why would he do that? I got it right here. The history of heirship has been exploited to facilitate the stealing of Black-owned land through various methods. Here are 3 popularized ways that this is happening that can be identified with this specific instance right here in Bryan, College Station, Texas, or specifically College Station. I'm gonna be that Bryan person. The partition of sales. One common method is through the partition of sales, where co-owners of their heirs property can legally force the land of sale. Since heir properties often have multiple owners with varying interests and financial needs, it can be vulnerable to manipulation by other individuals and entities seeking to acquire land of value. So this is how I go, right? You have one cousin, he make $100,000 a year. You got another cousin, they in jail. You got another cousin, shit, they make $20,000 a year. You make one cousin, you got one cousin, they ain't got nothing at all. They making time to time. They're going to be external forces that is able to use these different positions to be able to get what they want. That's literally what Trent is able to talk about in these recordings that I'm hearing talk about. And even talking to one of the family members, like, hey, Trent, he's part of the family damn near, because he done talked to so many of us. What is his motive to get to know and understand what is going on in his family? Financial gain. Number 2, the lack of clear title. This article that's written, is saying that all this could have been cleared up if there was a living title. All this could have been cleared up if there was a will or trust. Number 2, lack of clear titles. Heir properties often lacks clear and formalized legal title due to historical and systemic factors that have disadvantaged African-American families. Without clear title, it becomes easier for whoever, whatever, to challenge ownership and potentially claim the land for themselves. That's what's going down. And when you think about it, in the comment section that I had in that video, there was at least 20 different people that said, you know what, Mr. Lee, this is what's going on in my family as well. My family is experiencing this same exact thing. And then, you know, where I'm from, the towns that usually have a little black ownership involved with them that I've been hearing more and more and more, Milliken, Texas, Wixon Valley, Texas, Wellborn, Texas, Navasota, Texas. These are all areas that are being targeted right now and being extracted because, hey, listen, I believe that me can do more with the land and make more of the land than you are. Another news update. From talking with the different one of the family members, they said that the piece of land that Trent is trying to get, it would force Mr. Simmons to have to reconfigure his land because he has a barn on that side. He has, some poles on that side. He got his dogs on that side. So it's not just he's being indictive, you feel what I mean? But if he wanted to, because it's his land. So he's like, yeah, that little piece of lot you bought, that 10% of the lot you own, get it from the back side of my land, not the side of my land. Get it from the back, not this side. And that's where, you feel me, the theme starts to come into play. We know we got evidence. We got evidence that this team is trying to exploit a partition suit. What we know is that heirs' property can be vulnerable to exploitation because it often lacks the protections of formalized ownership. When you read the article, it is sensationalizing, almost in a way, how there is no formalized ownership. As a matter of fact, some questions that the author of this article asked me about, Sarah, was like, well, can you give me a possession of sale? Yeah, you are definitely trying to exploit the lack of protections of formalized ownership. What we know is in some cases, individuals or entities have taken advantage of complex ownership structures of heir properties to force the sale to exploit the land of economic gain. This process is commonly known as the partition sales, where co-owners can force the sale of property. So I done gave y'all the news update, right? Gave you the news update that Trent Thomas may have been wronged in the selling of this 10 lot. I talked about how this land dispute, you feel me, according to different family members, got into the shady journalism and misinformation, you feel me, of the parties involved. Getting into this article and how it's written in the way that make Trent Thomas, the white man that's allegedly implicated in stolen the land, being painted as a racial victim. You feel me? All that's preposterous, all that's wild. But it brings us into the bigger issue of gentrification. Gentrification, and for the people in the back, that's defined as the process. They're about the process whereby a character of a poor urban area is changed by wealthier people moving in, improving housing, attracting new businesses, and typically displacing current inhabitants in the process. So for people that want to say, well, why is gentrification wrong? Why is it a problem? It's a problem because displacement happens when long-time or original neighborhood residents get moved out of the gentrified area because of high rent mortgages, high property taxes. It becomes bad. It's wrong. You feel me? It's this capitalism makes it where we can always justify making some money off of exposable and disposable people. And black folks is usually seen as that, especially black folks in the country. You see what I'm saying? Gentrification is housing, economic, and health issue that affects the community, history, and culture that reduces social capital. I was born and raised in Bryan, Texas. Born and raised in Bryan College Station, Texas. Spent a little time in Southgate. You see what I'm saying? Spent some time, you feel me, over there in the State Streets. Spent some time at the Lincoln Center. You feel me? Spent some time Potomac Apartments. Spent some time East Side, West Side. I'm from Bryan. I'm born and raised there. What I acknowledge based off the industry that's moved into my city that I love so much, though I don't live there, is that gentrification is happening. Some people ask yourself, why do people gentrify? Well, as a neighborhood gentrifies, the economic opportunity represents increases. More people move into that area to take advantage of those opportunities. And then the desirability of the area increases even more. Developers get to tear down old housing, build new housing, get to literally tear up all of the familiar ties that have to that land or have to that property. What we know is that this dispute will not be won in the court of public opinion. This dispute would not be won in the court of public opinion. This suit will not be worn in a Facebook post, in a Facebook Live, in a Facebook comment section. It won't. It will not. This suit is going to be served and resolved in a court of law. None of us have the ability to do that. So we're going to wait to see how the process plays out. What we know is that based off of the evidence I've been able to provide and outroll, there's going to be a likely chance of this company to being able to abstract these laws based off of these three things: lack of a clear title, partition sales, you feel what I'm saying, and predatory actions. Like we recognize that's what's going to happen. So I'll just leave y'all, but I think 5 questions that we should ask ourselves when it comes to thinking about how can we protect ourselves from doing this. First question I would ask is, do you have a living will or trust? Does grandma, grandpa, uncle, daddy, mama, do they have a living will or trust? Are you financially literate enough to fight this if this happened to your family? Do you know where to go look to find, to learn about what to do or what's going on if this happened to your family? What do you know about your family assets? The family assets or the assets that you're gaining in right now, do you have something in place to be able to help them? This whole ordeal showed me I had to get my black ass quick as possible with the Lord to be able to type up my living will and type up my trust, because I recognize there are always external forces that's looking to exploit and take advantage of black people fighting with each other and families having different disagreements on what they should do with Papa, Mama, Granny's land. We all seen Soul Food where they start fighting on what they should do with Big Mama's house. This is the issue right here. You feel me? And what I know, what I'm talking about, some black folks in South Carolina, North Carolina, you feel me? That part of LA or that part of Chicago, this is an issue that always happens. That's the reason why that article was written in a way that centered airship law. And that's the reason why it was so easy for me to just ask the question, how is airship laws, how is airship laws, however you want to pronounce it, being used to take away land from black people? And when you ask that question, you see what I'm saying? The research gonna give you all type of data. It's gonna give you all type of shit, right? Education is elevation. Research over me search. I ain't never had to clout chase. See what I'm saying? When I was originally talking about this story, I was doing it on my smaller page for a reason, because it was just for the community. But the more and more family members reached out and said, "Hey man, Mr. Lee, I really appreciate what you did and what you said is going on, exactly what's going on." Yeah, we agree with the article. It's not simply as put as they making it, but it's not simply as put for no parties involved. Hey, conscious man, or you know what? My name's George. One of them, hey, George Lee, man, I learned about you. I figured out who you are. I seen your video, watched your whole video, and thank you so much, man, the work you're doing and what you was able to clear up, because I ain't see nobody speaking on the family's behalf in that way. Another family member hit me up in the Facebook, in the DMs. Hey, man, so I think that my point in bringing that up is, this is not, I don't stand to gain anything from talking about this. If anything, I stand more to lose. You feel me? There's no amount of clout I'm going to get from talking about a local issue in Bryan, Texas, that I'm already doing what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. The reason I'm bringing this up right now is because it's become obvious to me that I've become more active on Facebook in my local, you know what I'm saying, space and place, is that there are certain tactics y'all used to deploying against people, and they usually work. I understand how press work. I understand how the law work in many different instances, though I'm no lawyer. See what I'm saying? I do this. I do social media. I do social media. If I'm going to be invested in talking about a space and place and people I have no idea for, why would it come to a surprise that I use my platform to talk about what's going on in the community I was born and raised in? If I'm situated in truth and looking for the truth, why do you feel any slightest way when I feel like what you did and said was a part of some lies? Education is elevation. I'll holler at y'all, man.